Take a look around the automotive landscape right now. What do you see? You're probably noticing a massive shift toward incredibly heavy battery packs, highly automated EVs, and sports cars that honestly feel like they rely way more on computer processing than actual mechanical connection. The traditional enthusiast-focused driving experience, it is under serious threat. But today, in this explainer, we are looking at how one relatively small automaker is throwing an absolute curveball at the entire industry. We're going to see exactly how Mazda is charting a completely different, purist-focused path to literally save the lightweight sports car. So, here is our roadmap for today. We're going to kick things off with the Miata's final reprieve, then dive into the tech behind the SkyActiv Z solution, talk about shedding every possible pound, unpack a surprising Toyota partnership, and finally, look at the big picture with Mazda's multi-solution strategy. All right, let's get into it. Section 1. The Miata's final reprieve. To really understand why we're calling this a reprieve, we have to start with a pretty dramatic question. Is the affordable, lightweight sports car actually dead? Because right now, pure driving experiences are quite literally being legislated out of existence. Strict emissions rules like the upcoming Euro 7 standards are actively forcing traditional gas-powered cars off the road. I mean, we've already seen the 2.0-liter engine quietly disappear from current MX-5 spec sheets over in Europe just to meet these new targets. Automakers are essentially being told they have to slash fleet CO2 averages, and it's making the affordable, unassisted combustion engine a totally endangered species. And this brings us to a really stark contrast between where everyone else is going and Mazda's contrarian commitment to the purist formula. While the rest of the industry is basically throwing turbochargers and dual-clutch automatic gearboxes at the problem to boost performance and meet those strict emissions, Mazda's upcoming 2027 MX-5, which is dubbed the NE generation, is pushing in the exact opposite direction. They are incredibly determined to keep this car naturally aspirated, ultra-lightweight, and yes, equipped with a traditional manual transmission. Moving on to Part 2, the SkyActiv Z solution. So how exactly do you keep the internal combustion engine alive right now without sacrificing the soul of the car or, breaking the law? Well, you pull off an absolute engineering marvel. To solve the emissions puzzle, the next-gen Miata is adopting a 48-volt mild hybrid powertrain. But here is the kicker. Instead of downsizing to a tiny, heavily turbocharged engine like everyone else, they're actually moving up to a larger 2.5-liter naturally aspirated engine. Why? Because owners have been begging for stronger low-end torque for everyday driving. Better highway merging and passing power, but without that dreaded turbo lag. And most importantly, they're keeping the rear-wheel drive layout and that beloved 6-speed manual gearbox, all starting right around the mid-$30,000 range. Normally, to stay compliant with those strict emissions when you're really pushing an engine hard, you have to pump in extra fuel just to cool the engine down. It's wildly inefficient. But the SkyActiv Z completely optimizes the combustion system so that fuel cooling just isn't necessary anymore. It extracts most of the generated heat by converting it directly into pressure, which massively increases efficiency. When you combine that with a really lightweight mild hybrid assist, they've successfully restored power output to pre-regulation levels, entirely skipping the need for a heavy full EV battery. Which leads us perfectly into Part 3, shedding every possible pound. Because look, an engine is only half the story. The real enemy of any sports car is mass. 2,200 pounds. That is a sub-1,000 kilogram target. Just let that sink in for a second. In 2027, with all the mandatory safety equipment, airbags, driver aids, screens, and now a mild hybrid system on board, keeping a car this incredibly light is nothing short of a miracle. Mazda looked back at every previous generation and realized that the second weight increases, the magic just fades. So they are aggressively trimming mass everywhere. And it all traces back to Mazda's famous guiding philosophy, Jinba Itai, this beautiful idea of horse and rider moving perfectly as one. Weight is the hidden ingredient behind every truly great driver's car. When you shed pounds, literally everything improves. The car accelerates quicker, it brakes harder, it corners sharper, and it communicates so much more effectively right through the steering wheel. True driver engagement comes from active participation, not just brute force and heavy horsepower. All right, Section 4, a surprising Toyota partnership. Developing a brand new, bespoke, lightweight, rear-wheel drive platform from scratch today, it's ridiculously expensive. So how can a relatively small automaker like Mazda even afford to do it? The answer is economies of scale, through a rumored and highly strategic partnership. Reports are indicating that Toyota is actually going to abandon Subaru as its development partner for the next GR86, and instead, they're going to use this brand new Mazda-built Hiroshima platform. Now, while the MX-5 is going to remain a strict two-seater with its own Mazda engine, the platform will be stretched just a bit to accommodate a 2+2 layout and a Toyota hybrid setup for the new GR86. Sharing this fundamental architecture is basically what makes the financial math actually work for both companies. And finally, Section 5, Mazda's multi-solution strategy. To fully grasp how the Miata is surviving all of this, we have to zoom out for a second and look at Mazda's broader corporate timeline. In their 2025 multi-solution briefing, Mazda details a really flexible approach to the whole EV transition. Instead of betting the entire farm on just one technology, they use what they call bundled planning. This means they're planning solutions that cover various battery types and models all at once. They're also heavily utilizing model-based development, which uses advanced computer simulations so they can ensure safety and crash standards across various platforms incredibly efficiently. The secret sauce to keeping the sports car alive is actually hiding right in the margins of these corporate briefings. Basically, they use high-volume, jointly developed vehicles, so think of your popular, everyday, daily driver SUVs, to secure immediate profitability. Those high-margin, mass-market cars actively subsidize the research and development for their in-house, low-volume passion projects. Quite literally, your family crossover is paying for the existence of the Miata. We also see this really smart, lean deployment of resources in their regional strategies. In super strict markets like Europe, where EVs are being heavily mandated, Mazda is keeping their costs lean during the transition by focusing on these Skyactiv Z hybrid electric vehicles as a bridge. This strategy lets them meet all those tough regulations and satisfy practical consumer interests without having to completely abandon internal combustion. And this all culminates in a highly pragmatic target. While a lot of competitors are rushing to declare a 100% battery electric future, Mazda has deliberately set their 2030 global BEV ratio target at a lower limit of just 25%. They know there's huge volatility in EV trends right now, not to mention vastly different infrastructure progress around the world. So that leaves a massive 75% of their portfolio open for hybrids, plug-in hybrids, and traditional internal combustion engines. They are purposely leaving room for the combustion engine to breathe. Now, let's fast forward a bit and look toward the 2030s. The visual cues for this upcoming MX-5 are heavily inspired by the absolutely stunning, iconic SP concept car. And while the 2027 NE Miata is sticking with that 2.5-liter engine, this concept hints at Mazda's longer-term solution, a twin-rotor rotary engine that acts strictly as a generator, an EV range extender. This setup keeps the battery small, the weight super low, the packaging tight, and amazingly, it even features modernized pop-up style headlights. Which leaves us with this final, kind of wild thought to chew on. For decades, purists have viewed electrification as the absolute death of the sports car. But looking at Mazda's contrarian, lightweight, naturally aspirated, and manually shifted, mild hybrid approach, could the ultimate driver's car actually be a hybrid? Is this the true saving grace of the sports car? It is a fascinating strategy from a company that just refuses to let the joy of driving die, and I, for one, cannot wait to see it hit the road.